I'm Matt Muller with MovieWeb. It's a real pleasure to speak with you today.
Nice meeting you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. When I saw you were attached to this, it became even more appealing, and it didn't disappoint. I really enjoyed it a lot.
Oh,
Um,
cool. Thanks.
yeah, it's got so many things working for it. The confined setting is
Right.
certainly a great part of it, with all these different levels. I read at one point, and correct me if I'm wrong, you wanted to adapt J.G. Ballard's High Rise. It's obviously a totally different tone, but with the setting, did making the Silent Hour kind of scratch that same itch?
Yeah, it wasn't it was a J.G. Ballard story. Not High Rise, it was called Concrete Island. But it was also a story like High Rise that was all set in one confined location. And that in that story, it's about a guy who crashes his car in a highway like median and is stuck there, kind of like Robinson Crusoe on an island, can't escape. He's injured. So I mean I do gravitate towards movies that have kind of limited or more contained footprints, or one location. Just to be blunt, like my movie Session 9, which I made back in the day, was all set at one big abandoned mental hospital. Like I like that idea. I think it forces you as a storyteller to come up with creative solutions to keep the story moving along. And it doesn't have to limit scope. It's just like, you can still tell scopy stories in small locations just by how you shoot them and how you portray them. So anyway, I've always liked that. I mean, some of my earlier favorite movies were movies like 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 Rear Window or something, which all takes place in a guy's apartment in New York, like stuff like that. So I like that part of it, and I rise to the challenge of that. And this one certainly had that, and that's one of the reasons I think I responded to it, is because it was, how do you tell a story like this that's all set in like this one building from floor to floor and keep it believable, credible, and suspenseful all at the same time.
Yeah, it was you uh, choreographed the space so well that it was coherent the whole time. Um,
Yeah.
and Joe Kinnaman's great. I think he's a really underrated actor. I might be wrong, but I think he was cast a few months, maybe 5 months after he finished filming Silent Night, an excellent John Woo film, and he's
Yeah.
mute there. Uh, uh, I
Yeah.
it's so uh, I spoke with him about this sort of challenge of experiencing things without a sense and how that
Yeah.
changes your approach. What was interesting or challenging about that idea from a filmmaker's perspective?
It's just that, how do you, particularly in this kind of genre, which is meant to be, have some tempo and pace and thrills into it, if you will. Like, how do you maintain that when the characters can't speak to each other and they're only signing, like, and we're reading subtitles? Like, that was a concern for me, just as a storyteller. Like, how did you don't want the audience to check out every time Frank and Ava are talking to each other with their hands. Um, and so it was about setting that up in a way where, like, you're not overdoing that, and then sometimes like you're also not like underplaying. It's like finding that journey that they take. It's kind of like the way the audience, you have to kind of condition the audience to get used to, like, this is how the story is going to be told. And also the lack of sound, like, and how that can become like a plot, like a device you use to build suspense. Pulling sound as opposed to adding sound. Like, I always think that's really interesting. And like there's a couple scenes, like where there's a scene where she's like being sort of strong armed by Makai's character, and then he's threatening her, but we cut to her perspective and she can't hear a thing. So like it's terrifying in a way. It's like, here you got this guy who's like threatening you, but you're looking at him and all you hear nothing. You hear nothing. And so to me, like, those sort of moments were kind of interesting, because it's like they kind of break a little bit of the usual trope as to how you create suspense and thrills in a movie like this. And just the challenge of doing it in general, like how to, just logistically, work with a deaf actress and all that. And thankfully, Sandra was great in terms of helping us navigate that, because I'd never worked with a deaf actor before, so it was a new thing for me as well.
Yeah, she was awesome. I spoke with her, and she, loved the experience and wants to do more.
Oh,
It's
really? Good. Good.
She was so great. I'm curious what you think the response from like the deaf community might be to the film, and if that was something you took had conversations about or was on your mind while making it. I know you put a lot of effort into
Right.
um, being honest and informed in how you made the film.
We did, and we certainly want the deaf community to watch this movie and enjoy it, appreciate it the same way a non-deaf person would, or we don't want it to feel like it's anything different. But I think the tricky part was just, making sure we like told the story the correct way, and about what the deaf experience is like, particularly for this woman in our story, and how she would navigate through some of the obstacles that we put in her path. And so there was a lot of that conversation with Sandra herself, who gave us tips like, like this, I wouldn't do this in this scene. No deaf person would do that, or that's implausible that that would happen in reality. So we changed a lot based on her input, and we had other deaf people on the crew that helped us as well. We had kind of like our consultants. So we wanted to be true to the experience because we don't know. And so that that in the end you can watch the movie if you are deaf, and feel like we did it justice, but that's what the collaborative nature of movies is important, like, you know what I mean, like, and working with someone like her who wanted that collaboration and wanted us to get it right was really important to us.
Awesome. Yeah. With the last question I have here, I'm curious if there's any news about Twilight of the Dead, if there's
Yeah.
anything at all progressing with that.
I'm hoping to do it imminently. It's teed up. We're just looking for literally kind of in that phase of just locking in locations and stuff. But yeah, so that would be great. That would be a totally different movie. Uh, but again, like, we're taking that in that movie, which George wrote the treatment for, and wrote this, and the script was inspired by, and trying to do it in a way that's respectful to like the Romero franchise and the whole universe that he created. But it's also kind of meant to be a bit of a kind of a, like a sort of finale on that in a way. It's kind of meant to be a bit of a button, at least the way, I guess that's the way he sort of envisioned it. So yeah, so it would be great to be able to pull it off. We just want to do a zombie movie that's not like this, like not a typical zombie movie, and just like this isn't a typical thriller. Like that's the kind of movies I like to make, ones that don't tread the genre line so perfectly. They like to sort of try out new things.
Yeah, I love your subversion of genre throughout your career. Well, thank you so much for discussing this.
Yeah.
It was excellent. So
Well, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I hope you have a good week. Thank you.
You too. Thanks.